Welcome to Teabaggers, the podcast where golf meets a whole new level of attitude. I'm Dale Smedley, co-founder of Golf Gods, and I'm here to bring you behind the scenes of the brand, the sport, and the people who make golf more than just a game.
That's right. If you're here for stuffy country club talk, you might be in the wrong place. I'm Shaun, mostly referred to as Bear, the co-founder of Golf Gods. And if you love golf and don't take life too seriously, then grab a drink, kick back, and join us for some stories, laughs, and maybe a few hot takes.
In this podcast, we're digging into all things Golf Gods, from the crazy idea that started it all to the wins, the struggles, and everything in between. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
So whether you're a weekend warrior or just here for the banter, welcome to Teabaggers, where golf is life, but not too serious.
Let's tee it up. Welcome back to Teabaggers. If you didn't catch our first episode, we covered what is Golf Gods, how it all began, the gap in the market we found, how our friends and family reacted, when it was the first time we realised we could actually quit our jobs and make something of this. And Shaun, do you want to introduce the topics of this episode too?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to I think it was 60 or 70,000 listeners on that first one, so a real good start there, Dale.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that. Basically, we're going to go into how we turned $2,000 into currently, as it stands, $27 million in turnover.
That's pretty impressive.
No one talks about how you start a brand from absolute scratch, but we really bootstrapped it and want to share that story with everyone. So as we said in the last episode, we started with 10 hats and now we have 2 warehouses currently. We've had another one. We've had 2 in America.
We've actually got 3.
Yeah, 3 warehouses currently. Yeah. So it's quite a little logistic challenge and all part of the fun. And it hasn't come without challenges, Dale. So why don't you get into it and tell us a few?
Yeah, no, that's right, Shaun. It doesn't come without its challenges. And being tradespeople, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing or getting ourselves into. And when you think, I'm going to start a brand with my mate, you don't realise you've got to understand importing. You've got to work with factories out of China that might not actually speak much English. You're going to do work out how you're going to have access to US dollars and all these sort of things that come really, really sort of at you fast when you're getting into it to the start.
It's pretty funny to look back on and probably pretty ambitious to think that we always wanted to start an e-commerce business and we wanted to import stuff. And when it happened, we had no idea what we were doing.
That's exactly right. And you see these people now, like everyone's like, you can go to this factory, you can go to that factory. But it's all good getting the goods made in the factory, but how are you going to sell it? Yeah. Where are you going to sell it? Where do your customers come from? And all that sort of stuff when you're getting started, you don't actually think about. All you think about is like, what's the brand name? What are we going to do? You know, what's the logo look like? Yeah. And things like that. You don't actually think about all these things that are going to come at you. And one of the things that we found challenging along the time was importing. It was like, where do you go? What factories? What fabrics do you use? Are the factories working for you, or are they wanting to push you a product that they particularly want to sell because they've already got that fabric? They might have had something left over. And, I think now it's probably made a little bit easier, but back 10 years ago, it was probably Alibaba was the only way you could sort of get access to Chinese factories without actually going over there. And the funny thing is, we get asked it all the time. It's like, have you been to China? And we've actually never been, have we?
No, never been. But probably the early days, I mean, we didn't have the money to do it, but you think about look at a hat and we'd get a bunch of hats and there'd be a couple of stitches that were a different colour.
Yeah, we've actually got a few of those original hats, and we might actually throw some B-roll footage over for the people watching the visual.
Yeah.
But those hats, what rating out of 10 would you give those hats?
Oh, they varied. I mean, they're probably a 6 or a 7, but some of the worst parts was that stitching, where they'd finish the stitching and then there'd just be string everywhere and we'd have to be trimming hats. So we weren't just packing hats in boxes. We were actually being seamstresses and cleaning them up, ready for sale.
And even if you asked for a black hat with a white logo, sometimes you would get a black hat, you would turn it upside down and there would be red stitching.
Yeah. And
you would say, why did you give us red stitching? It was like, we just run out of black, so we just put red.
Yeah.
And they're like, you'd already paid for the goods to come, you'd already paid for the import taxes and things like that. They would just say, next time I'll do better next time. Yeah. And you're sort of stuck with these products. And to be honest, that can still actually happen today. We could be 10 years into it, we'd have the best tech packs in the world, but sometimes what comes out of China is not exactly what you asked for.
Stuff slips through the cracks and... Yeah, I mean, I can even think about it must have been our first big order because the samples, I don't think we paid import taxes. It was under a threshold. And then the first big order, all of our monies into this order. And then we're like, what's this import tax thing? Like, we had no idea that
yeah, and it's not even just the taxes that come, it's the paperwork you need to actually supply to the customs to get the customs clearance. You need to supply, I think there's 4 or 5 bits of paperwork that you actually need to supply before they will release the goods. So I know we exactly that. We got the samples in 10 under the $1,000 threshold, and it was just like that. Perfect. That will come in next time. So then I think the next one was 100 hats.
Yeah.
That 100 hats, I think, might have, say, cost just over $1,000. Comes in on DHL. Where's all your paperwork, boys? What paperwork?
What paperwork?
And the funny side of that story is, I think we were actually pre-selling a couple of those hats prior to that. So one, we'd gone, all right, we'll sell them, and we sold the hats, which is great. We set a date. The factory hadn't supplied it by that date. The delivery was longer than we expected. It got stalled in customs because we didn't have the correct paperwork, and that sort of the stress building up of all the customers thinking they got scammed and things like that.
Because we were a new business, so there wasn't a long history of verified, customers, I suppose.
Yep.
So you can understand people going on Instagram back then and thinking, oh, that hat's cool, I'll buy that. And then, I should have got that 2 weeks ago. What's going on? And we didn't have procedures of warning him.
We didn't have the
I remember
confirmation
distinctly,
emails.
I'm not going to give the guy the satisfaction, but he was a freelancer for Golf Channel. Do you remember this? And he'd ordered 2 hats, and they were pre-sold, and they were delayed, and then he gave us this torrent of abuse. He was a freelancer for the Golf Channel. He was going to ruin us in the industry. And do you remember it?
I don't remember.
I remember his name clearly, and because we had a friend who, Annabelle Rowley, who was a Golf Channel presenter at the time. We connected with her on Instagram and been friends with her for a long time, and messaged her and said, hey, do you know this guy? Like, is he going to be able to shut us down? And she said, oh, he's a nobody. Don't worry about him. But that was an example of upset customers and just not being prepared, not knowing to get on the front foot when those issues come about, which any business now, how to handle those sort of situations.
I think that's what's actually really kept us in good stead today is what we learned in those early days about customer service. And yes, we got a delay, but we actually let the customer know as well as we could. That's what the base of our customer service is based on now. And we are really reactive with customers. We do like to let them know what's happening. We don't often do as many pre-orders anymore.
Not anymore.
We definitely get our customs paperwork right a lot better.
Yeah.
But, one of the other things you don't think about, and probably now it's a little bit easier to access different currencies, but I know back then we had to pay in US dollars to the factory, and if you wanted to do that through an Australian bank like Commonwealth Bank or something, you're going to get absolutely charged in fees and exchange rates and things like that. And I think the only other version was Western Union. You remember Western Union?
Yeah.
And that was the dodgiest. You don't know where your money's going, and once you've signed that paperwork and you've given the money to that assistant, you don't know if it's going to come back or your products are going to get done. It's not a over 24-hour transfer. It could be weeks before they actually receive that money. So all those things of like, how do we get US dollars to pay the factory? If we pay this money to the factory, how do we know we're actually going to get the goods back? And all of that is just big risk, and business is risk. So I think that's one of the things that is either people thinking they're getting scammed or we're thinking we're getting scammed from the factories.
There was a lot of uncertainty with it. Yeah, absolutely.
So, it just wasn't the products. We learned a lot about customer service.
So you touched on that, Dale, and so I guess the pre-selling thing would come about because with a tiny baby company with not much money, we would pre-sell products that people wanted. We say, oh, it's going to be here in a week. We can get some cash flow now. We'll pre-sell them as soon as we get in. We ship them out. And there was that one time where they got in on like a Friday afternoon and they said to us, we're not delivering them till Monday. It's too late for us. So we took your old ute, your old glass fencing ute, and stacked it to the brim.
I think we've got a photo of it somewhere. I'm going to dig through
You need to find it.
My album and
it looked
try
like
and
one of
find
those. I don't know how to describe
it.
it.
Big Indian sort of
like boxes on the roof, on the bonnet. It was like rope everywhere, and like I'm leaning out, holding boxes on the roof, and we're like, if we get pulled over, we might go to jail. This is disgracefully, allegedly, in case we're infringing on anything there. But we got them back in time, got those orders out on that Friday arvo, and was able to fire off a heap of emails to customers saying it's coming.
And that's the one great thing I think we found about that is people actually love the product. They like the brand. I think it was right good timing for people were just sick of the Callaway, the rort of the pricing that, you know, Titleist and FootJoy were charging.
It was also at a time where little startups were getting popular, like in all industries as well. So people were wanting to support those type of businesses. So we did get in at that stage where people were more likely to go, oh, cool, a little startup, let's get around them.
Let's get around them. And that's the thing. So just to recap, we started with $2,000. I think the 10 hats were the first sort of sample hats we bought.
Yep.
Sold those without a website. We bought 100 hats. Don't think we'd actually quite spent $2,000 at that stage.
Yep.
From that 100 hats, we ended up starting our own website. Do you remember the website? What was it? Remember the website?
Big Cartel.
Big Cartel.
Big Cartel.
That's right. I don't know if they're still around now, but
sure.
Shopify has definitely taken over that space. But and we'll touch more on the podcast about Shopify and e-commerce and things like that to let you guys in on how we did it. And we're still using Shopify today, which we did change reasonably quickly to Shopify.
Well, remember we started with initially we said if you want to order this, give us your email and we can send you an invoice via PayPal.
Invoice. Imagine doing that now.
And as so inexperienced that we were, we got people sending us their email address. So then we'd go to send them the invoice. And we're like, oh, we need their address if we're going to send it to them. So then we're like, we actually need your physical address. And that's when they were like, oh, they're in the USA. How are we going to ship to the USA? We used to go down to the post office, remember, because we didn't know how to set up accounts with freight companies. So we'd go to the post office and take a trolley and have a bunch of boxes and go to the front counter where people are trying to pay bills. And
they just got sick of us in the end because we would roll down every day with this big trolley of boxes with hats. It was all hats at that stage.
Yeah.
Roll down there and they were like, you guys need an account or do something. But I still don't think we went another direction. What was the other company we used before Australia Post? It was like we would send it in Australia to Sydney or something. Skippy Post. That's
Skippy
right.
Post.
It probably took about 3 or 4 weeks to arrive in the US, but they actually got their goods.
They did get there.
They still got it.
Yeah.
But, you know, how things have changed in those 10 years. For now, we've got multiple, probably 10 different carriers that are shipping all around the world, and we get daily pickups, and we're sending, I think we did the maths earlier this year. I think there's around about 130 odd countries we've shipped to in this year alone.
Yep.
So it shows how broad our international audience actually is.
One of the keys to that, Dale, that I remember with customer service is to pick the cheapest freight option. We would it would be a service that didn't have any tracking. So there'd be a tracking number, but there was no details. So
we didn't know where it was.
No,
did the customer
had no idea. And then, especially if it's a pre-sale, the customer's already waited a week before it's dispatched. We didn't have any email flows set up, so it just got sent. And then they'd contact us and go, "Hey, where's my box?" And you'd try and look up the tracking, and well, they don't track that. And I remember having a lot of animated conversations with Australia Post saying, well, there's still a tracking number, so you must have some idea where it is, even if you don't share it. And they're just like, no, we don't even know. It'll get there when it gets there. And most of them got through.
And that's the thing, and we're very thankful for our customers at that stage of their understanding, and it sort of taught us a lot on the way, and that's why we're sort of here. We're here today, and we've got a great team of 20 odd staff, and they're based mainly in Australia, but also around the world. And that's sort of those sort of hard times and those really startup where we had absolutely no idea what we were doing sets us in good stead today.
Well, I think what you said, we are grateful for those customers, all of our customers, but particularly in those early days because they were really sympathetic, and as long as we got back to them, they were going to go with it. But a couple of the negatives there, Dale. Why don't, on a more positive note, why don't you talk about some of the wins we've had along the journey?
Yeah, definitely we've had a few wins. Probably they're more product-based, sort of logo-based stuff. There was definitely early on the Golf Gods name and the Golf Gods brand itself people weren't screaming out for that. But what we did start doing and what was quite fun was what we call the parody sort of products. And people saw that lighthearted sort of golf, and that was the complete opposite to where golf had been. It was just so stiff, tuck your shirt in, wear white socks, take your hat off in the club rooms, and we were just the complete opposite to that. So, we were bringing out hats that said titties on it instead of Titleist. Completely, you would never get them confused, but, we were trying to bring in some things like that.
Well, again, like the core is, it's about fun, isn't it?
We
just thought it was fun, and we thought it was funny to do and lighthearted, which has always been the way.
And then that was our content strategy as well. So our content strategy, especially early, was to repost other people's content, and that was a way that we thought we could sell the products and make some money, but we don't have to sit there and make hours and hours of videos and things like that. And as the following grew on the Instagram, we probably got it up to, you told me a stat the other day.
Yeah, so I reckon after 2 years, we had nearly 300,000 followers.
On Instagram.
On Instagram alone. So it really blew up in those early days based on that content strategy of just trying to be fun.
Trying to be fun. So we were posting trick shotting. Trick shotting was a thing that only Tiger Woods did on a Nike commercial to 2015, 16, the likes of Coach Rusty, Josh Kelly, the Hole in One trick shots, all these guys making content around tricks. And that went from, just a bit of juggling to full flips and standing on each other's heads and all of that type of thing. So
one of the best things about that I really enjoyed in the early days was how triggered people would get. We'd get a lot of people comment and they'd say, you can't call yourself Golf Gods and post that. And we'd say, we can post whatever we want. This is our page. This is our business. And because we were only doing it because it was fun, we weren't doing it to trigger people, but some of the real heavy, straight line, traditional golf people really got bothered by, what's their handicap? It's like, who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
It looks cool. It's fun. Good. It's different. So it was always been a fun strategy.
That's right. So, and I think that's what sort of grew. So as the page grew, the views got bigger and bigger, and things like that. People actually came to us and sent us all the content because they wanted us to post. They wanted to be on Golf Gods, and even if we posted someone on there, they would write, I can't believe I was on Golf Gods page. And yes, I know now there's probably like thousands of people that have got that same strategy or have grown pages based off that similar sort of strategy. So yeah, we're obviously here now, and we're going to we have transitioned our content a little bit less than that, and that's just moved with Instagram. Now it's mainly memes and video, real short form content is now the content king.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So one of the favourite things I know you enjoyed a lot was the Shopify notifications. Do you want to tell people about them?
Yeah. So you'd on the app on your phone, you'd have notifications when you get a sale, and it would make a
ching ching
ching ching.
We'll play the sound over the top.
Yeah. And having gone from being a tradie to quitting our jobs to needing to make some money and get this thing going. There was one time for me personally, I was in the process of selling a house, and I'd rocked up to my real estate agent to sign the paperwork, and you'd just posted a popular product that we'd just got back in stock. It wasn't a pre-sale. It was we were holding them back that time. And I've walked in to sign this paperwork, and it was just going ching, 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 just over and over and over. And that was one of those moments where it was like we'd gone from selling a bit here and there to like, wow, people love that, and they're going to put their pockets in there.
And they're all around the world. And that was one of the things as we slowly started to build the brand in America. It was basically 2017, 18, prior to COVID. We would fly to America. A lot of times we were in Arizona, and we would go to the waste management event, and we would roll in and there was people wearing Golf Gods. Like that feeling, you remember walking around and taking photos with people around, hey, we're the owners, thanks for rocking our stuff. And it was like, you're all the way around the world and someone's wearing your brand. It's sort of really surreal. And I remember a moment, do you remember the moment we were playing at a little dodgy course in Adelaide here, the executive course, and I don't even think we'd had a product, maybe some sample hats, and I saw these two kids, probably about 13 or 14, walking up and playing some golf, and I said to you, I was like, imagine those two kids wearing our stuff one day, and it was like, just a complete dream. It never would have happened. And now we've travelled all around the world and see stuff, and people come up to us or send us photos of like, I saw someone wearing a Golf Gods product, like how cool, or you see it on TV, or we saw one on the PGA TV the other day, and like that feeling it's something you can't beat.
No, and how's we've even had a few photo submissions of people with Golf Gods tattoos, and
the old Golf Gods tattoos. We have seen one. One came through the other day with the script logo, and we will touch a bit more on the logos and what that means and things like that. But yeah, there's nothing more than someone just imprinting their body with Golf Gods tattoos or Golf Gods logos.
Yeah, you're doing something right there. All right, Dale, what advice would you give someone who is just starting out?
Just starting out, well, there's a lot you can use, but I'm on record of saying this already. Like, the one thing you've got to do is take that jump and say, today I'm going to start this business, or today I'm going to contact that person about this. And a lot of people have got these great ideas, and when people see you that you've already started something, they always come to you with these, I've got this idea. And I said, well, why don't you do something about it? And I've got some memories of some guys in my head that have done that. And now we're 7 or 8 years, we still talk about that idea they had, but nothing ever happened. So the one thing you got to do is get started.
Yeah.
Have a crack today. Ask people, and then I think nowadays, even more so than when we got started, is source people out that have already sort of done it, and you can really cut shortcuts on things like that. There. So 2 bits of advice is try and surround yourself with people that have either already done it or a bit further advanced in their business model than you.
Yep.
But then taking that leap, that's the thing that holds people back, is just getting started.
Love that.
Yeah.
I think about when we started and how much time we could have saved, or just stress if we had people around us that could have told us some of
Absolutely. And they
those
talk about that now in a lot of the advisory, get an advisor, get a mentor, get a this, and you think, where do I find them? What do I do? There is a lot out there. They are very beneficial, and we still use them today.
Yep.
And even we're 10 years in and we're still got advisory teams. We're looking for more advisory teams if we can find the right people. So that is one thing that's really, really important.
Yeah, good. Now, we spoke about it earlier, but when are we going to China?
I don't think I like the food. To be honest, I don't see that we actually have to. So the one good thing that we've been able to put in place is
It's not just Chinese food. He doesn't like sushi. He doesn't like he's
sushi.
a steak and potatoes man. That's about it. So
Absolutely. I think the one thing that we did well to not have to make us go to China is through working with different factories, we found someone that was could speak English. That's the first thing, is find someone that can really speak English well and relate to you. And she was working for a factory. We had our problems working with that factory and her. She sort of left the factory and sort of said to me as a passing comment, hey, if you ever need anything, you just let me know. Months went on, and we didn't do anything. She just reached out and said, hey, you guys, if you need anything. And I said, actually, we need some polos. And she was actually our polo manufacturer. So once we had her, the world opened up in China, as in we negotiated in Chinese. So we knew the Chinese guys factories weren't going to stuff us around or scam us or run away with our money. We could access fabrics, and that was the one thing. The factories would say to you, oh, we've only got this fabric, we've got this one and this one, that's all you got. But if you actually look into the Chinese factories that do fabrics, it is ginormous. There is thousands of different fabrics around. So by having her, one, we negotiated in Chinese, so we got a much better price. We got access to a lot more things. And we actually, rather than going to a factory and saying, hey, make this polo for us, we would actually get our buttons made somewhere else, we'd get our tags made somewhere else, we'd get our fabric from somewhere else, and they would just literally cut and sew it. So by having someone there that's basically working for us, and you do need to be at a certain level, there are lots of these people around, especially on TikTok. There's sourcing agencies out of TikTok, left, right and centre, and that's the reason we haven't had to go, because I speak to her daily, and it's just had no reason for us to go over there. So as much as I'd love to go to the Canton Fair, which is in October, that would see just a wide range of products. I don't really see us. I'd rather go somewhere else, to be honest. So just as a recap of the second episode, we covered how it all got started, how we went from a very small investment of $2,000 turning up to now to date around 27 million. We talked about our travels in terms of customer service and logistics and manufacturing and things like that. And then we went through some of the early wins there. So another great episode. You can catch us on all your favourite podcasting apps. And we're actually going to have this on YouTube as a visual thing. So stick around for episode 3. That's coming to you real soon.
And that's when we really made it. That's when Titleist came and sued us. So
so you know you've made it when Titleist come knocking.
Tune in for episode 3 and find out how Titty's got us in some trouble.